followed by the host man of the evening, the legendary John Carpenter, ladies and gentlemen.
Mick.
I haven't seen this movie in a long time. It was my wife Cynthia and I, our second date at the Pickwick Drive-In in Burbank.
Did you watch the movie?
Not that much.
Uh-huh.
Not so much. I really enjoyed it, seeing it from beginning to end. It was.
I think this is a digital thing, right?
This was a Blu-ray projection.
Yeah.
How important do you think your education at USC Film School was to launching your career?
Huge. Absolutely huge. When I went there in the late 60s, 68, it had just become fashionable to go to film school to be a director. Never heard of that before, at least where I grew up. And the whole bent of USC at the time was to teach you production, to teach you the mechanics of filmmaking. Photography, editing, sound, acting, directing, writing, everything. And the professors who came to visit us at the time, Orson Welles, Alfred Hitchcock, John Ford, Howard Hawks, I got to see all these guys speak in person, and it was incredible. So yeah, that was really formative in my early learning period.
And what was it like when you made your first move into the real world of filmmaking, where you had to meet schedules and budgets and finance?
Shit. Absolute crap. It was horrible. I remember the first movie that I had to make day after day after day at 6 in the morning.
You're a real morning guy.
Oh, yeah. No, it was Assault on Precinct 13, this little action movie. Oh, I couldn't believe it. This is hard fucking work. Excuse my language, I'm sorry, I apologize. But no, I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared.
Well, you became a filmmaker really because you wanted to make Westerns, and your timing was bad.
Yeah, they died, huh? Yeah, they died. They went away.
So you have mostly made science fiction and horror films and kind of been painted into a corner, maybe creatively. Do you mind that, or do you embrace it?
I embrace it. Hell no, that's great. It keeps me in beer and cigarettes all these years. It pays the bills. I have a good time making movies. I'm 62 years old, and I just made this movie with these 4 babes in a mental institution. You can't get better than that.
Even at 6 in the morning?
Yeah.
Now, what about, you've always been a very independent filmmaker, and you've had different experiences between making independent movies like this, which, although it looks like a huge movie, cost, I believe, $7 million?
5.9.
5.9. Oh, that was the story. And so the experience of that, and then when you moved on to do The Thing afterwards at Universal, suddenly it was a big corporate machine, a lot different from Avco Embassy. How did you notice?
They had a lot more stuff for you to play with on a bigger budget. They had a lot more choices. You had more time. You had more money. And everything was just a little bit better. And when you have a studio behind you, they have this, in the old days, I don't know now though, they had this big machine. And publicity and promotion and distribution, the machine behind you would promote your movie. And it was pretty incredible. They had a staff of people there. They had Albert Whitlock, who was a matte painter at the time. He'd do all these matte paintings for you. And it was just a department in Universal. They dismantled all that in the 90s. It all went away. Those days are gone. Long gone.
Snake Plissken and McCready.
Well, in the summer of '78, when I finished directing Halloween and I was doing nothing, and this project came along called Elvis. It was Dick Clark Productions. It was a 3-hour TV movie, and it just something I really wanted to do. It was different. It wasn't horror or suspense or action. It was a musical drama biography of this guy. And Kurt was cast in the role. I didn't really have much to do with casting him.
So he was there first?
He was there first, and they couldn't find a director. I think everybody turned it down. They thought it was going to be a Dick Clark shuck and jive kind of production, really kind of not so good. I just jumped into it. I thought this is going to be great. And that movie really kicked my ass, I got to tell you. That was 30 days to shoot 3 hours. So that's an hour every 10 days. And 150 different locations, 88 speaking parts, and it was a period film from the 40s and 50s up to the 60s. Man, that was rough. That was rough. That was my big baptism of fire in terms of, oh, this is what it is on this level. You got to work fast. So we did, and it turned out okay.
Well, you're also a musician, and it plays a big part in your films, not just your soundtracks, but the rhythm of how scenes are played and the like. Your father was a musician, and that was really the only musical film you've done. Were you able to appreciate it, or was it just too much work?
But I couldn't appreciate it, really. We had playback to a bunch of generic Elvis songs. There really wasn't anything. When I shot my footage, they actually added a couple songs later that I was not around for. But my footage was shot with, what's the name of that damn thing? I can't remember. It's a Little Richard song. It was songs that were kind of public domain that they bought that Elvis had sung. So it really wasn't that specialized. There was, I think, a moment or two of Heartbreak Hotel. That's right. They didn't use...
it's like a Beatles movie.
Don't Be Cruel. Yeah. But no, I was just trying to make the day. It wasn't about rhythm and music. It was trying to finish up.
But it's a spectacular movie. If you haven't seen it, it's available on video now, and it's really worth seeing. And
I don't know how spectacular it is, but
well,
it's very nice.
And Kurt is amazing. He makes
Kurt's really good.
perfect Elvis.
Kurt's
But you actually play in the band. The Coupe de Villes plays in Escape from New York.
Yeah.
In the old,
Oh, yeah.
that's the old Wiltern Theater, which at the time did not need much dressing for that.
That's right. It was all falling apart then. And the exterior was the old Fox Theater in St. Louis.
Now, how was St. Louis chosen as the location for this?
St. Louis was chosen because in 1977 they had this massive fire in the downtown area that burned out a whole bunch of the town. And they were really going through a real hard time there. So they let us shut down all the power for the inside of the city. The lights, they let us crash an airplane in the middle of the street. Nobody seemed to mind.
Notice.
It was, they were just great. And we used the National Guard to land a helicopter in the middle of this, a couple of helicopters in the middle of this square. So all in all, we got a huge bang for very little money.
So you were drawn by blood, basically.
Exactly.
There's no mistaking a John Carpenter movie. I mean, the way you shoot with widescreen, all of your feature films have been widescreen. Is that Paul Verhoeven once said when he made Basic Instinct, it was a revelation to him, wow, I can shoot 7 people in a scene and not have to cover them.
Yeah. But you can shoot one person and you have all this space to work with, this rectangle, which is absolutely beautiful. I've always loved CinemaScope, Panavision, widescreen anamorphic. Unfortunately, you can do it nowadays, and you don't use anamorphic lenses. I don't like it as much. It's anamorphic lenses are squeeze lenses that basically you shoot it squeezed and you unsqueeze it in projection. Unfortunately, the focus is very narrow, so you have a real hard time focusing. It's like
especially in the dark, like this movie.
Oh boy. And we had a bunch of this movie out of focus. But nowadays you can shoot it flat, meaning spherical, and in post-production make it into a Panavision film. So.
what's great is the geography that you see. Like you were talking about, you can have a single on an actor, bring him into a close-up, and the geography, particularly with the mobility of the movement you use, you do a lot of Steadicam type movement, and I think it's a real signature of yours. And that had to have been something you developed after film school. Because
It was. The Panaglide Steadicam, or Panaglide, is a gyroscopic camera that the operator wears on them, and they can run around and turn corners, and go up and down stairs, and do all sorts of great things. You've all now seen it 100 times, but it was a cheap dolly. In other words, to get a dolly for the camera, you have to lay down tracks and block it, and it takes forever, and then you have to run this dolly, and a crab dolly up and down it, and it's a pain. But when you have a Panaglide or Steadicam, you have an operator and a focus puller. They move along with the actors. They can do anything.
your life, and how suddenly you're being interviewed, and you're John Carpenter, and you're well known.
Every movie that I've ever made, to be frank with you, when it first came out, it was greeted with indifference or hostility, including Halloween.
But box office in this case.
But the box office was indifferent in the beginning. That's a movie that was made in the old days, when you could release a film regionally in this country. You could move prints from Los Angeles, San Diego, to Phoenix, to move it across the country. And same bunch of prints, and just put ads in the paper for very little money, and that's what happened with Halloween. It was not a wide release throughout the country. And it was one of those films that built word of mouth. So it wasn't immediately a hit, and the reviews are awful. Man, just attacked me. And
You were glad you put your name in the title, right?
here's the idiot, you know. I remember thinking, well, there's another one that didn't really work, because none of my others had. And somewhere around Christmas time, we were shooting some of Elvis in December, and Afro Embassy came out to visit me. They had a studio. And I thought, why is he here? And I asked him, why are you talking to me about making movies? He said, well, your last film was a hit. And I said, what are you talking about? And it apparently had gone overseas, and it started making money, and it had gotten really good reviews in some papers. And so anyway, it built up, and I think it took about 1.5 years for me to become John Carpenter. Before then, I wasn't.
What's your favorite part of the process? Do you like pre-production? Do you like shooting? Do you like sitting in the editing room or composing?
I love being on the floor and shooting. That's my favorite part. And then being finished. Having it completely finished is really great.
Working with actors, you work with a lot of the same actors over and over.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I try new people. It depends on the parts. And I love working with actors. I try not to say too much, because you hire really good actors and they know what they're doing, and they bring it. That's what you're looking for in an actor. Somebody who comes on the set ready to go. He brings the role, he or she brings what they have, and then you sort of try to help from there. I mean, my idea is if an actor knows what they're doing and is doing great, stay out of their way. Can I get you a cup of coffee? You know, it's that kind of thing. But if somebody needs help, then I'll be there to help them.
You have very friendly sets. I've watched you work many times, and your sets are always very happy, and people really enjoy coming to work, and that's not always the case on a film set.
Apparently not. I've heard some stories recently in the movie business. I don't know how many of you are in the movie business here, but it's pretty rough. I guess directors have a shot list, and they come on and they keep working for 14, 15, 16 hours in a row. And the next day he walks in and somebody from high up says, you suck. Right? You know, there's nothing like what I'm used to. I want to get out there in 8 hours if I can. I want to get out before noon.
You love doing it, but you love having done it.
Oh, man. And actually, you're responsible for me coming back after almost a decade of not directing. After my last film, which tanked, crashed, and burned critically and financially, kabloom. And I got the barbs from everybody. And I thought, why am I doing this? I'm an old guy. I need to relax. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to stop this for a while. Because when it stops being fun, I'm going to stop doing it. And it's no fun anymore. And then you started, Mick organized this thing called the Masters of Horror. It started out as a dinner with a bunch of us old broken down horror directors getting together, having dinner and insulting each other.
Gumming on food.
And then we kept having these dinners, and you said, hey guys, if I can get somebody interested, would you guys direct episodes? And we'll call it the Masters of Horror. And we all stupidly said yes. And so here you did it. You got it on Showtime, and we went to Vancouver, and you put together a really, really great crew up there. And it was my first time back, and I think it was 2005 or 6. I can't remember what it was now.
2005. And you hadn't done television in a long time.
Yeah, oh yeah. The thing I remember the most about the experience was that my feet hurt. I had to go and buy some new shoes so I could walk around.
Canadian shoes?
Yeah. But it was great, and I thought, this is so much fun doing this. I'll try a feature. So you're responsible.
You better write the Before we start taking some questions from the audience, could you tell us a little bit about the ward, which, by the way, premiered in Toronto just
And then worked on the script and decided to do it because it was a small film. It's a contained film. It's about this girl who we find running through the woods and who sets fire to this farmhouse and is arrested by the police. They throw her in this mental institution, and she doesn't know who she is or why she's there. So the whole movie is trying to find her finding out her identity and what's going on and why am I here. It's one of those kind of films. And there's a ghost walking in the hallways. Inevitably, there's a ghost walking somewhere. So I thought, well, this is great. And we went to Spokane, Washington for the tax breaks, not because of any other reason. But I got to tell you, there's a great hotel in Spokane. I recommend it to everybody. The great beds, we slept like great. It was fabulous. The food was pretty good. So it wasn't bad. But we shot in this mental institution outside of town. The section we were in was closed down, but right out the window was the maximum security section for the real crazy, dangerous people. It was all fenced in. And they gave us these badges, and they said, okay, well, if you hear a siren go off, we're in lockdown. That means that somebody has escaped. So you can't go out, and basically the production company built a fence around us so that they couldn't get in. So it was a little strange. It was a little strange. It was a little odd. But everybody was nice. The crew was nice. I had a great time. That's the word.
Can't wait to see it. Let's open up questions to the audience here. I bet there are 2 or 3 questions out here. Right here.
They Live was a movie I made in '88. It was a part of a low budget movies I was making for Universal at the time. I was very disenchanted with Reaganomics, and because it just I couldn't believe it. We went back to this, and now look at it today. Look at what's going on today. But anyway. So I decided to make a sort of a science fiction movie with a little political satire to it. It was based on a short story by Ray Nelson called 8 O'Clock in the Morning, about a guy who goes to a hypnotist, the show, and the hypnotist tells him to wake up, and all of a sudden he sees these creatures sitting around the audience. He can see things as they really are. So I just invented the sunglasses part, and I invented the main character and all sorts of things too. We had a good time making it. It was fun. I'm glad you went 7 times, sir. That's great.
And an 8-minute fight scene with no cuts.
Yeah.
No, there were cuts. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah.
Full reel of no cut. Goes on and on. It's great. Next, one back here. Yeah. Waving.
That's a real good question. And anybody who tries to become an actor or actress in the movie business has to have a tremendous amount of courage and strength, because it's only constant rejection over and over and over again. I use a casting director, and the casting director I used in my last film was Pam Dixon. She's absolutely fabulous. She knows a lot of young actors and knows the ins and outs of the business, knows who's having a little substance abuse trouble, knows who's really good, and that's how it works. It goes through agents. And how to get an agent, man, I can't tell you. I don't know. But good luck.
Right here.
You've done a lot of really great work. Is there ever a point on set where you're like, it's getting kind of weird? I don't know what's happening, especially like Halloween. It's like,
I don't know what's happening on the set. Man, let me tell you something. Making a horror movie is like a picnic. It's fun. All these adults come in with a bunch of blood and knives and monster makeup. And the actors scream and yell and run around. It's hilarious. It's a joke. And the first thing you do is you put on some prosthetic and get your throat cut. And right after the take is cut, the actor's grinning and having a great time. It's hilariously funny. Making a drama, you want to blow your brains out. Drama is, especially if it's serious, is, yeah. And you know, the actors have to get into it, and they have to feel it if they're method actors, and they get, God. But horror movies, there's no such, there's no monster there, so pretend. It's fun. No, we never get lost. We really don't. We're okay. Thank you. It was McCready's hat in the thing was drawn by one of our storyboard artists, and it was so fabulously outsized. It was huge. I had the prop department make one for it. I had to wear it. I loved it.
Right here tomorrow night.
Well, that's an easy answer to that one. The Big Trouble in Little China was an assignment. In other words, 20th Century Fox had been developing it. Originally, it was a Western. A cowboy rides into San Francisco. They steal his horse. And he has to go into underground Chinatown to find it. And he meets all these mythical characters. They updated it, brought it into modern day. W.D. Richter wrote it. And they paid me a check, and I directed it. It was a lot of fun. The three storms in Big Trouble in Little China, don't tell anybody, are from Shogun Assassin. The three Shogun Assassin guys in the end, these big giant hats. I just tell the head the wardrobe department, watch that, and copy it.
Back here.
No, John Wayne, I don't believe watched it. I don't believe he would have liked it. It was too violent. I worked for him back in the 70s. Right at the end of his career, I wrote a Western for him. And he was one of the most intimidating human beings I've ever met in my life. He was huge. And he didn't like people with long hair much. I don't think he liked me much. But no, I don't believe he saw it.
Back there in the desk. Yeah. You started standing up here.
Can you talk a little bit about your writing process, and especially Escape from New York, and what you look for in a story?
Escape from New York was written in the 70s, or actually in 74. It was a combination of, I loved Dirty Harry, the Clint Eastwood character, and I'd just seen Death Wish with Charles Bronson. And I had read a novel by Harry Harrison. I don't remember which one it was. Planet of the Damned or something like that. It may not be that one. Where this guy has sent to this planet, it's the most evil place in the universe. And who's going to get to go in is the most evil guy. So I sort of threw all that together and made New York a prison. And once again, I had actually had an agent, and they sent it out, and nobody gave a shit. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to make it. And it sat in my closet and until after the fog. And I was scheduled to do this movie about the Philadelphia experiment. I don't know if anybody know what it is, but it's hilarious.
I wrote the first draft of that.
Did you really? Wow.
Not the one you saw, I guarantee.
Anyway, I could not find a third act for the Philadelphia experiment. I was just completely screwed. There is no third act in this thing. It's a Shaggy Dog story. On purpose. So I met with the head of the company and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this, but I have this old movie, Escape from New York. So he said, sure. So that's how it got made. My favorite movie? Wow. Well, there's a bunch of them. It depends on, well, Only Angels Have Wings, Red River, Rio Bravo, let's see, His Girl Friday. Oh boy. In terms of horror movies, I loved Suspiria. You know they're remaking that? They're remaking, and the director apparently said, I can't wait, because all you torture porn fanatics are going to have a great time. I know.
Let's talk a little about remakes, because you have been remade a lot.
Yes, there are two kinds of remakes in my career, of my movies. One where they pay me and one where they don't. I prefer the ones where they pay me. Sometimes I will be involved in either the writing or the ownership of the project. And they'll come along and say, we want to remake whatever it is. We want to remake Assault on Precinct 13, Escape from New York, whatever it is. They pay me. They've remade The Thing. They've done a prequel to The Thing. But I didn't own that. I get nothing for it. But the joy of going to see it when it comes out. Now it's a story about, if you take my film, it's a story about the Norwegian camp sequence that was off screen in my movie. They've shot that with her. And it's a digital monster. And I don't know, maybe it'll be good. It may be
And
great.
your movie was a remake.
Absolutely. One of the great science fiction movies of all time, The Thing from Another World, Howard Hawks production. Love that movie. I love it.
It shows that a remake can be valid. There's a story worth telling, going back to the story, who goes there.
Oh, yeah.
And you did an amazing version of that.
Oh, thank you. But remakes have been done since the beginning of movies. Come on, over and over again.
Just not all the time.
No, I think there's one film that they will never remake. Well, there's many, but one famous film that cannot be remade, Citizen Kane, will not ever be remade. Thank God.
Next one, yes. High hand, right there. Beard, yes.
You know, my question is just, you talked about remakes. I was really excited to go see the Fog remake, one of my favorite movies. And I noticed your name was attached to it, but the story was really different. What happened with that? Why did they decide to
Well, that was one of those pay me things. You know what? My name was attached to it. They generally took the story. They used the lighthouse. They used this one ghost, but the ghost. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I showed up on set to watch him shoot a little bit and went home. I don't know what. I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's not my movie.
Okay, jumping up and down here.
Where'd you get the idea for the theme to Halloween? Where'd you get the idea for the Halloween theme?
The Halloween theme was my father was a music teacher, had a PhD in music, played violin, was an accomplished musician. He taught me to play 5/4 time. I was a teenager, and I had a set of bongo drums, and he taught me 5/4. So one day I was sitting with no inspiration at the piano, and I just rocked octaves, ding, 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 and then went up a half step. There you have it.
That's a question and an answer.
You guys want more magic bullshit from my answer. You want me to tell you all these creative things. Oh, you're not going to get it from me.
Right here.
Not a problem, man. I was actually on some heavy-duty, serious drugs back then. You know, I was thinking of that. That was around the time this rumor was circulating that I was going to die. It was unbelievable. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not sorry. But no, I think that horror is is always been the same. I think horror movies have always been the same. Most of them are shit. A few are pretty good, and a couple are really damn good. I thought that remake of Dawn of the Dead was really good. I thought that was all right. I mean it. It really was good. There's some foreign films, horror films that are made. They're pretty interesting. So it's not all crap.
That are sequels, remakes, and franchises of familiar titles.
Did you become a sound mixer? Are you a sound mixer? Way to go, man. Congratulations. Congratulations on your profession, really. That's great work.
All right, waving the magazine back there. Yeah, you with the thing in your hand. Yeah.
I know you always score your films. I was wondering why, for The Thing, you chose Ennio Morricone to score it.
That sounds like an actor I know, Tim Guinea. I don't think it is.
I think you're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have two Hollywood celebrities with us tonight. Tim Guinea and Peter Jason.
Peter Jason.
Stand the fuck up. Yeah. I completely forgot the question. I'm sorry, say it one more time.
That you usually score your films, and I always wondered why you chose Ennio Morricone to score The Thing.
As Ennio Morricone is really one of the great composers of all time. And the studio wanted it, and they were willing to pay for him, and I wanted it. And I didn't have to do it. Actually, I did some interstitial work, music work on that. But he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Anybody in the balcony? I'm sorry, I've been ignoring the balcony. Yeah, way up in the back.
Hey, how are you? Thank you, man, and don't jump.
Okay, one other up in the balcony.
No, it's just...
I'm not going to walk up there in that fucking balcony. You come down here after this is over and I'll autograph it, okay? All right?
Boy, you're opening the floodgates now.
Absolutely.
Okay, a couple more, right up there, yes. With the top, yeah.
How about some girls?
Well, I've been.
Where are the babes?
Ladies?
Where are the babes?
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Wait, well, you already did one. Any more? Yeah? Over here, yeah.
With the bang that you started earlier, has there been any movies lately that have inspired you?
Any movies that have inspired me? Lately? Currently. I really like David Fincher as a director. I think that he's really funny. I like everything he's done, even though I don't particularly think the movie works. I think there's one guy who is completely in control of his vision on screen and is doing exactly what he wants to do. What's really inspired me recently? The Men Who Stare at Goats? Just made something up. I don't know.
All right, we started with you in the middle.
There's a fun beat quality to Escape from New York in the material, and also your use of synthesizers and Isaac Hayes and all of that. When you were making it, was the beat quality to it, was that any intention, or is any of that come in just the way it's looked at in that era as far as when it was made?
Well, no matter how much I try to make a movie A, it always turns out to be B. I didn't look at Isaac Hayes as kind of being a gimmick. I thought he'd be really cool. I looked at this as, you know, an adventure story, a science fiction movie. I didn't look at it like a B movie. No, I know it's not a negative, but I didn't start out to think that way. My feeling is you start out to tell a story. That's essentially what you're going to do as a director, and that was the story I wanted to tell for $5.9 million. Jim Cameron was one of my special effects guys on that movie, and look where he went. Thank you.
Okay, up there, right behind.
Can you talk a little bit about Memoirs of an Invisible Man? I think that's an amazing film.
Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. Nobody went to see that movie. It was, again, it was a chance to do something completely different. Got to work with Chevy Chase, Daryl Hannah, and Sam Neill at Warner Brothers. And I got to work with a great William Fraker. Bill Fraker was a cameraman who has since passed away. He shot Rosemary's Baby. He's directed movies on his own. One of the classic cameramen. And it was a departure. It was kind of a men in suits film, mainly upper middle class movie. I tend to make blue collar films, so it was a chance to do something different.
Speaking of blue collar films, Starman is a movie that doesn't get talked about very much. And very unusual in that it feels like a big studio movie, but it still has your signature to it. And it was nominated, Jeff Bridges was nominated for an Oscar. It's a great, unique performance. But how was that experience working within the studio confines, again, with an assignment?
I love making Starman. It was really fun. It was basically my chance to do a romantic comedy road movie with a science fiction background, but it was a milquetoast, soft girl movie, which I got a chance to make. I got a girl movie. I really wanted to make one. And Jeff was just unbelievable. He was unbelievable. He's a great actor. Let's get close to wrapping up. I have to go meet my drug dealer pretty soon.
Okay, one right here.
Nah, the one that pays the most money.
Okay, one more. Right back.
It was very interesting and challenging. Roddy came from a whole different world than movie acting, but he did a great job, and he really, really tried hard. And Roddy's become a real close friend. Ladies and guys, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks a lot.
Get loud.